relating to juicing and blending, which often comes up. And I've talked about this week, and I want to make sure that you're really clear on the process. Let's start talking about juicers. Now, we've been using something called a Magimix while we're over here. We don't use a Magimix at home. We're away on holiday, we're here with family, so our goal is not to use a Magimix back home. It's a centrifugal juicer, and it doesn't really get the nutrition and the amount of liquid that we're looking for out of our particular vegetables that we're juicing. So a juicer is something that takes the vegetables, and it's more designed for vegetables, and you can do fruits with it as well, and basically it squeezes out all of the juice out of that particular vegetable, leaving a pulp, a dried pulp, which is essentially the body of the vegetable or the fruit or whatever it is that you're actually juicing with. So with a colloidal mixer, it's like a circular tray. I think I showed this to you during the week, with some little serrated edges, and you put it's got a tube at the top, and you put your vegetable into it, and it basically just breaks it up and squeezes the juice out of it, and it throws the pulp out to the side. It doesn't give you necessarily all the good stuff that you'd really want to get out of the vegetable, but you know what? At the end of the day, it's better than nothing. So if your affordability is only to buy a centrifugal juicer, then get one for now as a starting point. Have that at least as a base point to start with. For us, we started with the Magimix originally, and then we moved over to something called a Green Star juicer. Now, in my opinion, this is the best juicer in the world, but you're not talking about a cheap product here. It's probably about £400 to buy, those of you watching this in sterling. And it uses twin gears. Now, there are single gear type setups. This is a twin gear system. So you've got two gears like this, effectively spiralized gears. So as your vegetables drive down into the spirals, it crushes the vegetable and squeezes every little ounce of juice out of it. It's also magnetized to pull out some of the good stuff, actually, some of the good ions, etc., out of the vegetables and the juices. And our experience has been that if you do a carrot and a cucumber, say, for example, and take spinach, and you put those through a centrifuge, you get quite a moist pulp. If you put the same vegetables through a twin gear, high capacity, because the Green Star has got a high capacity, it's got a very powerful motor, juicer, the pulp that comes out is virtually dry, and that's a sign that it's squeezed everything out of it. Yes, you're going to pay more for it, but you're going to get more out of it. In the long term, we've had our Green Star juicer now for something in the region of, I think it's 6 years, maybe more than that, 8 years actually, looking back. Now, of course, that means that it's had a lot of use, but it's fine, it works. It gets a bit stained, but that's very typical, and it's great. And you can do other things with it as well. Stina, my fiance, makes other things with natural organic stuff, but I won't go into that. So a juicer squeezes the juice out of the vegetable. Some things don't work so well. So for example, if I was to put lettuce leaves and green leaves into a centrifugal juicer, you're going to find that it goes in, it doesn't pull a lot of juice out of it, and I guess you kind of drags the leaf through, and it ends up throwing it into the centrifuge. You put it into a twin gear juicer, and there's nowhere for it to go but down. In fact, you can see it dragging it down, and it squeezes all the juice out of that vegetable leaf. So that's why we use it, and that's our personal preference. But like I say, you know, if you're going to do it affordable. At least do it. That's the most important thing. Now, blenders. Why do we blend? Blending is different. Blending is effectively a blade, and that blade rotates at a specific speed, and it allows whatever you're putting in to be broken up. Now, if you blend, now there's so many different types of blending. I'm not going to go into the detail on this right now. That's not the purpose of this. It's really to illustrate the difference between the two. If you put carrots and apples, for the sake of argument, and ginger into a blender, what you're a lower quality blender, a lower price blender, what you're likely to end up with is, and you put some water in there, for example, maybe some almonds, if you're going to do that, you're going to end up with a blend which could be thick. Now that's different to a juice. A juice is literally like a liquid. Boom, you just drink it. There's no particles in it. It's just juice. A blender will leave particles in there, maybe even broken parts, etc. Some people argue that when you do a juice detox, you just use a juicer. We actually use both, but the reason for that is because we put superfoods in, which are in a powdered organic form. They're actually taken and dried in a very specific way, which captures all the goodness, and we'll mix that with our blend. So we're still avoiding using stuff that's chunky. If I'm going to go for a caloric irrigation tomorrow, which I'm going to do, I don't want to do a big, heavy, sugary fruit blend, which is typically what we try to avoid on a detox, with lots of particles and bits in it, because if I drink that, it goes into my system, that's going to end up coming out tomorrow. I want to be pure, so I'm looking for primarily a juice-based blend. So a typical example that we've done today would be water, or if you want to, you'd soak almonds overnight. You would blend the almonds first, maybe a handful of almonds. From that you would end up with a watery almond milk. You then strain off the almonds, so you've just got the fluid, and then you use that as your base for your blend. That's another way around it. So we've got water or an almond milk that we've made up. Then we put into that our superfoods in a powder form, which I've shown you already. Then we might put half a date in to give it a little bit of sweet. We'll put cacao powder in there, and we'll put in some of the coconut oil in a solid form, by the way. It's not liquid, it's solid form. Spoon it out, put it in with some bee pollen and some of the other things I talked about, and you blend that up. And actually, if you look at it, it's very, very liquid. There's no particles. It's not like chucking a big banana in there and an orange which leaves lots of bits in it. This is still a blend, but it's a blend that's in a liquid form. Now, outside of a detox, we're going to put other stuff in there as well, and I like mine thick, and you can have different types of blend, but I'm talking about a detox blend here, which you can also use. So hopefully you're getting the distinction between the two. Now we're using here a kitchenette, I think it is, blender, which is a great domestic blender, fine for most things. But the blender that we actually use at home is a much more powerful blender, which I'll show you when we get back home. I'll put a little blog on this with a video. And this thing is seriously powerful. I mean, you can put nuts, you can put all sorts of things in there, and it liquidizes them to a point where they've gone past just being little bits. They're almost in a liquid form. And it's designed so that if you leave it on for 10, 15, 20 minutes, it can create a raw soup. Now a raw soup is where you put something in, you blend it up. So you might want to do a Thai sauce, for example. We did this just before we left. You do a Thai sauce. So you put your Thai mix in there, you put your various ingredients for your Thai food. You may put some Thai paste in there as well, and some water in that with all of your ingredients, and you blend up your sauce. And if you keep it blending with this particular blender we use, it warms it up, but it doesn't cook it. Remember, there's a difference between raw and cooked, and the threshold is about 40 degrees, but that's another conversation we can have another day. And you end up with this nicely warmed soup, but not cooked. It's just purely through friction, and you can pour that into your food as well. But that's not for the detox. I don't want to confuse you on that. So in summary, juices simply squeeze stuff out and you drink it as a juice. Blender blends things up, and then you can have particles, or you can put things into the juicer, into the blender, so they don't form particles. Okay, so hopefully you're clear on that, and you can do a mixture of both of these. Another quick nutshell one is that you saw us do our goji berry blend. That's what it was, and yet it looked like a juice. It was very watery. That was goji berries, a handful of goji berries, soaked in water overnight, and then you take the whole lot off, put it into a blender, not a juicer. It's not going to work with a juicer. You can't put goji berries down into a colloidal juicer. You could put them into a spiral juicer, but really you're just going to put them in a blender. If you blend that up, those goji berries break up into tiny little particles, and then basically it just looks like this little soup with some tiny, tiny seeds in there. Got loads of good stuff, loads of vitamin C and all the things I talked about yesterday. So that's the difference between the two. So that's the end of my feedback for day 4. We're about 3/4 of the way into the day. We're just off to have a lovely walk. And the other thing I would finally say to you is this. When it comes to exercise, everybody's different. Don't go out on your feet doing heaps of exercise if you're feeling the effects. Rest. Allow your body to give you the signals. You don't have to be out bouncing around. For most people doing their first detox, I would actually suggest resting a lot. You may sleep more, your body's going to be releasing a lot of toxins, so that may be something to consider. As you get more used to these things, you might want to go out and do a brisk walk. Some people do runs and light exercise. Remember, you're not getting as much solids into your body, and you're not taking as much energy foods, etc. So you're allowing your body to cleanse, but it does actually help to do some kind of aerobic or light bouncing exercises, because it stimulates the lymphatic system, and the lymphatic system is where a lot of the toxins deposit, and you want to get them out and then flush it through with water. So just monitor yourself. Your body is the best measure of that. See you tomorrow.